I see a couple more people coming in, but I have 7 o'clock, although this clock says 5 till 7. So does everybody else have 7? My computer says 7. All right, so we'll go ahead and start. So I apologize for the condition of this joke. It sits on my refrigerator. I have several jokes I'll share that are on my refrigerator. One about a car that's my favorite that I'll use next week. And I don't know whether you can read it. It says, "They told you wrong, pilgrim. Happiness is over the next hill." Or you could say enlightenment is over the next hill. So welcome to Buddhism in a Nutshell, Session 4. I just can't believe this is Session 4 already. So we have one more to go. And these 2 will be fun, like last week was. You start getting kind of into the nitty-gritty of everything. For those of you who are new, my name's Karen Mastriani, and I'm one of the many volunteers at our center. We're all volunteers except for one, our center manager, who's a paid position. She actually came in last week to say hello to everybody. So I know more new people came in than I even met. Who's here for the first time tonight? Okay, so there's quite a few of you. Great, great, great. So welcome. If you've never walked into a Buddhist center before, it's quite colorful. At least Tibetan Buddhism is quite colorful. Zen Buddhism is very stark by comparison, because it's just blank white walls. And the Tibetan people like colors and pictures and prayer flags, and everything in here is to help our minds. You're welcome to come up and look around at the altar. You can touch things. We have a book that can explain to you what's on the altar and what some of this means. And I know there was questions about that. It looks like we worship what's on the altar, or we worship Buddha, and we don't. In this tradition, you're not worshiping. You're humbling yourself. You're lowering yourself. You're asking for wishes, or for help changing your mind. You're kind of just really asking yourself for help changing your mind, because it comes internal, and learning from the great masters who came before us. But it's not worship, despite what that might look like. And so those of you who are here for the first time, if you have any questions, I stay after because I'm cleaning up, and I'm happy to answer those questions. I also give my email address. Jot it down. Don't hesitate to email me. This is the first class that nobody's emailed me yet, so you can break that record. Usually people email, and that's perfectly fine. I don't mind at all. And then Hetty, who will be coming in here, who greets, you can ask her questions. She's been coming for a long time as well. I've been a member here since, I don't know, early 2000s, and have been coming. And so I can at least ask people when I don't know the answer. So don't hesitate to ask questions, email me, anything. We're all happy to help and talk. If you feel like you've just been dropped into the middle of something, I was sharing with somebody that when I first came here, I shared this the first night. It was in our old center, which was in the basement of an office complex. So it was dark. You had to walk behind the office and walk down this little alleyway into the door. And I started walking down that alleyway, and I said, there is no way. Prayer flags, pictures, start backing up the alley. And another member who became a dear friend said, no, come on, I'll walk you in. And then it was the last session of the Discovering Buddhism 2-year module. So I was like, I didn't have a clue what these people were talking about. I left, and I started over at the beginning of the module, and I realized I was just as lost at the beginning as I was in the middle. And Hetty just shared that in Tai Chi, whenever you start Tai Chi, you start at the circle where you come in, and it's all circular because there is no beginning and there is no end. So I thought, I'm going to remember that with this. There is no beginning and there is no end. We just kind of plop you in here, and then we start. So before we do much more, let's go ahead and just do a quick meditation to settle our minds, just to come into the present and set our intentions. So go ahead and close your eyes, sit comfortably. Those of you who remember the 7-point posture and you're comfortable doing that, that's great. But at the very least, back's nice and straight, and then chin just slightly tilted downward, eyes closed. And if you're not comfortable closing your eyes, just glance downward. Just take a few nice deep breaths. Just become present in this space. With each breath, turn your attention inward. Buddhists are inward beings, developing our minds, getting to know our minds. And just remember the purpose of meditation, which is to become familiar. So meditation releases us from all these uncontrolled thoughts that we follow 24 hours a day. Just little stories that zip around, just carried by thoughts and stories. And so through meditation, we become familiar with that. Try to control those thoughts and stories. Try to put an end to that delusional or polluted mind. So let your breathing return to a comfortable rhythm for you. And begin to focus on your breath, counting each in-breath and out-breath as one. And maybe just count to 5 and start over at 1 again, or count to 10 and start over at 1. Trying to focus all your attention on the breath and on counting the breath. And now, as you're counting, notice the space between each in-breath and out-breath, each out-breath and in-breath, and even between your thoughts. So, as you're counting, let one part of your mind observe when a thought pops up. Notice what kinds of thoughts. Don't follow them, just let them float by, maybe label them. To-do list, anger, nervous, hungry, whatever thoughts pop up, label, let it go. When you become distracted, just gently, kindly no judgment. Just return your attention back to the anchor, which right now is counting our breath and watching our thoughts. And just let go of counting. And set your intentions for being here tonight. Think about the reasons you came, the mind you're trying to cultivate, a happier, more peaceful, more positive mind. And letting go of negativities. Maybe you came because of curiosity. But as we cultivate that mind and just being here, regardless of the reasons we walked in that door, in doing so, you're benefiting not only yourself, but you're also benefiting those around you, those around them. And we're creating this ripple effect of well-being. In the meditation sessions that will start after this session, I heard there's going to be a 3-week break between them this time, but then you start doing longer meditations. You start getting the feel for that practice as well. And that's kind of nice because then you can keep stretching out the time. So we have several plans for this evening. We'll review and finish karma, quick review of karma and finish karma, and then talk about non-virtuous actions and what those are. They'll sound very familiar as we start going through them. We're going to start the outline of the Lam Rim, and that's a handout that I gave you. We'll use that. Those stanzas, that outline of the Lam Rim to guide our sessions tonight. And those will include precious human rebirth, not usually a description you hear much in the West. We're going to talk about the Buddhist view of death, and then we'll review the principal aspects of the past again. Renunciation, bodhicitta, and the wisdom of emptiness. And we'll talk about those just a little. Did everybody have a good Easter? Good. I was thinking, I thought, it's such a busy time and, school's out. I thought, I wonder if people will come this week. So thank you. And then I also thought, Easter's that symbol of renewal. And I thought, what better way to renew than to be here together? So I think it's great. Did any of you watch Jesus Christ Superstar, the remake? Did you watch it? I haven't finished it yet. Anybody see the original? Oh, yeah. The original. But I really like this one. I just really like the interpretation, and it's quite good. Quite good. So we had great discussions last week, and I want to thank you for that. And I hope it continues. There is no such thing as a stupid question or well, there could be an inappropriate question, but I may not answer. But no, there's really not. And I may not know the answer, or Hetty may not know the answer, but we'll find it for you. I usually leave, and I did after the second class, I left with a few questions to ask Geshe-la, who's our resident teacher. And I found out that I answered one of them incorrectly. So it's always, we always learn too. So continue the discussion, interrupt me, ask questions. Questions may have bubbled up from last week as we do the review. Are there any burning questions now on, and for those of you who are new, when you ask a question, we need to use the microphone. Our IT gurus aren't here tonight, but they're doing their magic from afar. So we're still we're still being recorded and we're still live. Usually there's a couple of people that listen from afar. So he's doing his voodoo from somewhere. So we'll still use the microphone tonight, even though IT is not here. Anything? Okay. So, quick review. I'm not going to go through the Four Noble Truths again. I didn't bring my handouts. Oh, maybe I did. No, I did not. The green sheet of paper fooled me. But I'll bring them next week, which outline the Four Noble Truths and a couple of meditations. But just remember, this was the Buddha's first significant teaching, and there was a reason it was first, and it was foundational to everything else that comes, to make sure that we have that understanding of what is suffering. And it's actually foundational to karma, which is the law of cause and effect. And it's the Buddhist ethics, Buddhist ethics principles based on karma. And we'll talk about that a little bit in detail tonight, because we're going to talk about those non-virtuous actions. And it is a law. Last week there was a question about the law of attraction, and even though they use that term, law of attraction, that's not a law. And it probably has to do more with karma, what we're attracted to, than anything else. So maybe it is a law of cause and effect. I don't know. But the secret in that positive things, positivity attracts positivity. It's a ripple effect. Negativity attracts more negativity. So I can see how that relates in some aspect. And then we started the conversation on rebirth, the continuity of consciousness. We usually don't use the term reincarnation, but some people do use the term reincarnation, including in our tradition, but it's usually the continuity of consciousness that we're talking about. And if you recall, mind, rebirth, karma, they're all interconnected. And so when you think about the continuity of consciousness, it's that very subtle mind that continues from life to life to life. There was something, did any of you come Sunday to the teaching on Sunday? Were you here? So I didn't come, but I listened to it. Robbie Watkins, who is our central director, gave a teaching, and he talked about rebirth. Because it was Easter, he talked about rebirth, and so that was kind of interesting to hear him talk. And he mentioned that rebirth is not unique to Buddhism, and the Buddha did not invent or start this discussion of rebirth. It had been around before. The Buddha just realized the truth of rebirth, and then he tried to teach us how this subtle consciousness of mind continues. And it's interesting because I read something, I couldn't find it before I came, so I shouldn't say anything, but a lot of traditions have had some form of rebirth, and then it got changed to a heaven or a hell, or whatever it got changed to as the traditions came through the ages. But both karma and rebirth, or anything we talk about, check it against your own experience, which is what Dr. Watkins said. How does it hold for you? Take it as your hypothesis, sit with it a little bit, Anything that's uncomfortable, don't just, Hetty said, just put it away. Just put it away and then come back to it periodically and see, does it make sense? How does it sit with you now? And then consider it. It can take people years, and some people just aren't comfortable with rebirth and karma. So just take the other principles of Buddhism that are helpful to your mind. It's all about what's helpful to our mind. If it's not helpful, you let it go for now. So we said the mind is not physical. It can only be produced by non-physical things. So just like the law of cause and effect is a law scientifically on the physical realm, every cause, there has to be a cause for every effect. It's the same with the mind. Every moment of mind had to be caused by a previous moment of mind. Caused by a previous moment of mind, caused by a previous moment of mind. And that still is the, a law of cause and effect. One leads to another, and this concept goes back to conception in our mother's wombs and before that. That conscious of mind had to have a moment of mind before conception. And so you recall karma. It's a scientific law in the physical world. No reason that it's not in the mental world, but it's action. Karma means action, or Venerable Rabina, one of the nuns that teaches here, uses the word intention. There's no judgment. There's nobody looking down, keeping score. Venerable Tendrin, who's one of our nuns, says there's no cosmic scoreboard in the sky. It's a law. It happens regardless whether you believe or not. According to Buddhist principles, we're constantly implanting positive seeds and negative seeds on that mental continuum, on that mental consciousness, that very subtle consciousness. It just happens with every thought, with everything we say, and with our actions constantly. So it leaves those imprints directly. So if you want to think about what you were like in a past life, look at your life now. Probably gives you a little bit of an idea. Venerable Rabina actually, Geshe-la has shared this story too about a dog, this was years ago, that inherited millions of dollars when his owner died. Millions of dollars and a mansion. I forget how many square foot it is. Huge house, diamond collars, all these jewels. And they just shake their heads and say, no, what kind of karma is that? You have the karma to be born with this incredible wealth, never to use it, never to appreciate it. Anyhow. And then, you think about how you're living now, it gives you a pretty good idea of what your life's going to be like in the future. And we can change that. That's what Buddhism teaches us. That's what neuroscience now teaches us. We can change our mind. We can change how we're going to be. We have that within our control, especially as humans. So, with karma, we talked about the 4 laws of karma. We talked in a little more detail about karma, but we said that karma is definite, as I said. And positive karma will only result in positivity or happiness, as we'll say, and our non-virtuous or negative actions, our negative karma, will only result in our suffering. And it's just like in the physical realm, if you plant an apple seed, you're not going to grow a lemon tree. It's the same kind of thing, and it's definite. Karma expands over time. So positive karma can grow and negative karma can grow as well. So we want to increase those good karma, keep it growing, and we really want to stop the negative stuff from growing too. We'll talk a little bit about how we can stop some of that negative stuff. There's no result without a cause. You can't experience anything unless you caused it from something in your past life. So everything we experience. Now, we experience things at the same time sometimes because our karmic seeds ripen together. Like we're all experiencing this center right now because of whatever karmic seed we had at the same time, but not because of anything outside of you that brought you here. You know, there's a reason where you're here, and there's a reason we're all here together. We talked about tsunamis or hurricanes. You have whole groups of people who suffer, you know, the same experiences. And those questions came up last week. And interestingly, afterwards, Chris made a really good point. When something positive happens, we don't think about it as karma. So he said that Venerable Rabina said 2,500 people probably every minute, or at least every day, experience a beautiful sunrise or look at the beautiful blue sky, cloudless blue sky, and we all experience that probably simultaneously. We don't even think about it. But hurricane hits, tornado hits, tsunami hits, and then, you know, it really hones in that all that suffering. But it goes both ways. Makes sense? Okay. And then karma is never lost. So the actions always produce a result. There's no expiration date. It doesn't go away unless we lessen those imprints or unless we purify them. And we'll talk a little bit about how we can purify them. 'Cause we're not going to go into any detail with that, but at least it'll help us feel better. That's not hopeless. You know, I think about everything I do in this life, that I create negative karma constantly, every day. And then you have to worry about what you did in a past life that you didn't even know what you did. It can be kind of overwhelming. So, new information that we didn't get to last week are the 4 aspects of karma. And the first aspect of karma is the ripening result. And this means the type of rebirth we're going to take, how our karma ripens is the type of rebirth that we'll take in our next life. Whether we'll be human, animal, insect, there's other universes. Stephen Hawkins, I don't know if any of you follow Stephen Hawkins, ever read any of his information. I tried reading his most recent book. Holy cow. But he believed and showed in his way proof that 3 universes exist simultaneously right now while we're sitting here, that we can't see those other dimensions, but we're there. And whatever he showed scientifically to show that, and I forget how many universes Buddhists believe in. It's either 4 or 7. I don't remember. Anyhow, so it's not just here that we could be born into. And they say at the time of death really has our mind at our time of death really can have a lot to do with what actually ripens for our next rebirth then. And then the next aspect of karma is the possessed result. It's a type of environment we're going to be born into. So, you know, we're going to come back into a country like the U.S., in an area like Raleigh, North Carolina, where we have the Dharma teachings readily available to us, in a country where we have religious freedom to practice that? Or are we going to be born somewhere where we don't have religious freedom? Maybe it's a war-torn country. Maybe you know, we're constantly hunting for food and looking for water, so we don't have this luxury of practicing right now. Where could we be? You know, where is that? What's that possessed result going to look like for us? And then experiencing the results similar to the cause is the next aspect. And that means if you are robbed now, it's because you stole or robbed in the past. If you are lied to, it's because in a past life you lied a lot. So we you know, if people harm you, it's probably because you harmed probably that actual person in a past life. So you experience the results similar to a cause is an aspect of karma. And the last aspect is creating the result similar to the cause. So we start now creating our habits and our tendencies that will repeat our actions in a future life. So if you kill now, you will probably be killed in the future or kill in the future. If you know, some people are born and they love to fish, and it's probably because they're creating, you know, they've created that cause in the past to continue to kill. So we kind of create our own habits now with what we do. Now that will change my attitude in my mind like that. That's all I have to do is remember, I don't want to create this habit. I don't want to create this tendency, and it'll stop me on a dime if I don't get too out of control. You know, if I can catch it early enough, it can be a powerful reason what habits that we want to create and those that we don't. Any questions about aspects of karma or the 4 laws of karma?
I was just wondering what type of environment we are born into. Is it always in the future? Or in Buddhism, because when you're saying like you might be reborn into a war-torn area, but is it always moving forward in the future? Or
it's a good question. So in this context, yes, I'm speaking about we could be reborn in, you know, in a war-torn country. Are you hot? Yeah. Okay. I just keep hitting the down button a couple times and it'll start going down. I know there's other ways to do it, but that will kick the air on. What's the temperature now in here? 79. Ooh! It'll kick it on. What was that? We're in the hell realm. We're in the fiery hell realms. There's cold hell realms. So, but you raise a good question, because we can be here now and then we could go off. I mean, you see it all the time. You see Americans who go off to fight a war in Syria or join, you know, the Islamic troops. So we go off to a war-torn country. So we can be born here and because of whatever karma ripening, we go to a war-torn country. So I do see that kind of happening in this life. But in this aspect, we're talking future.
The last 2 aspects, experiencing and creating, both have negative examples. Do Buddhists also believe in the positive? Like, so.
Thank you. Yeah, I gave all negative examples. So like a perfect example of experiencing the results similar to the cause, if you were generous in a past life, you probably have, I mean, we have some comforts, right? We all may not be wealthy, but we have some comforts that we have nice clothes. We had a car that we drove here, and nice friends that drove us here. So we were generous in a past life to have what we have now. And then creating the results similar to the cause, if we are compassionate and we're generous now, it's probably because we were shown compassion and generosity in the past and we practiced it. So we created that habit. So you're right. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Every example I have is negative.
So how about if you have an intent to do something, you see someone being robbed and you have the intent of do something, but you don't, but you have the positive mind that you want to help people, but sometimes you might not actually do the action. How does that affect karma?
So good question. So you're really angry and I can't think of an example, and a roach, you see a roach and like I scream. And then if your next instinct is to try to kill it, but you don't, you still had that intent to kill, right, or to harm or whatever, but you don't do it, so it's not as powerful, and that's about as deep as we'll go in this class. The Discovering Buddhism class, they have 5 weeks on karma, an hour and a half, a night, and so they'll go into more more depth on that, but it's not quite as powerful if you don't carry it out. And then if you carry it out and you feel bad, that's not as bad as if you rejoice. You know, it's dead, you know. Like I had a neighbor that killed a snake, and I was crying. She was like pulverizing this snake in her yard, and I was sobbing, and she thought I was sobbing out of fear, and it was like, holy cow. I felt bad for her, I felt bad for the snake, and then she rejoiced. It was like, yes, I did it, and she was like dancing around, and it was like, oh, much more negative karma then. And it's the same good. Like a lot of times we want to do something good, and you physically can't. Like I can't give to everything I want to give to. And I don't have time to volunteer, so I do what I can, and then I set the wish. May in my next life I be that dog, only I can use that money, and I can be a philanthropist and give it away and do good. And there's other ways we can do good, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit, and try not to talk about too many negative things. Does that answer your question? Anything else right now? Good questions. Okay. Oh, but I'm still going to talk about negative right now. But I'll talk about positive things, I promise. So we talk about these non-virtuous actions that we do. And this really is getting at that Buddhist view of ethics and what we mean by ethics. And it's like every action of body, speech, mind has a future consequence. It will not go away. It has a consequence. And so the whole goal is to clean up our mind. And if you think about it, whoever was our past caretaker did a pretty good job for us. And hopefully we're going to do a good job for the next caretaker of this subtle consciousness. And Steep, one of our Buddhism in a nutshell teachers, said that, you know, she sees this body as a hotel. This is a hotel, and her subtle consciousness is living here, and she's going to keep the room clean, and she's going to spiff it up, and she's going to add flowers and brighten it so that, you know, it'll create good causes the next time her subtle consciousness lands in another hotel for a period of whatever life that would be. And it really does eliminate the victim mentality. You know, so, you know, you always think, why me? Or, you know, I shared growing up Catholic, I would think, why would God do this? You know, it was always that judgment that was there. And with karma, there is no judgment. You do non-virtuous actions, you're going to suffer. You know, it's just the law of cause and effect. And Rabina said, similar to what Chris Baranski said, you know, we have this woe is me, this happened and that happened. And she said, you don't ever hear anybody do that when they won the lottery. You don't ever hear anybody say, why me? You know, why did I win this lottery? How could this happen? You say, hey, great. You know, I don't ever win anything. I'm going to take it and go with it. So our minds are interesting. Okay, so our non-virtuous actions connect to karma through ethical behavior. The first thing we want to do, creating karma, is, Venerable Rabina always says, zip it. If we could just zip our mouths, it would stop us from creating negative, more negative karma and doing more non-virtuous actions. And remember that the Buddhist reasons for doing these is different than other traditions you might be familiar with. It's not because God says these are wrong or sinful. It has nothing to do with a judgment or a God or a sin, or we want to please God. It just has to do with we don't want to harm others, but we also don't want to create negative suffering for us, because we want to be able to reach enlightenment in order to benefit as many people as we can, as many sentient beings as we can possibly benefit. So the good and the bad has more to do with that than it does sin, in the traditional sense of sin. So when you look at the non-virtuous actions, there's 3 that we do with our bodies, there's 4 with our speech, and 3 with our mind. And the 3 of the body are killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. So killing is taking the life of another. In Buddhism, that's any life. Certainly, human life has, would have more power or negative karma than killing an animal or an insect. But killing anything is a non-virtuous action. Stealing, and the definition in a Buddhist context is taking something that's not given to you. So it's not just when you were a kid and you took candy out of the candy bin at the convenience store and left without paying. It's anything that's not given to you. And one of the best examples I can give you, Tendrinla, one of our nuns, lived with us for a year when she first moved back to the U.S. after being in Australia for a while. And I run in the mornings, and I kept finding all these great black napkins. They were big, they were heavy. I'd find almost 1 or 2 a week. I had a pretty good collection of these cloths. And she said, well, did you take them? I said, no, I found them. I keep finding these. And she was like, well, what do you mean? I said, they're on the streets. I said, sometimes I wait a day and they're still there, so I just pick them up and I wash them. And she was like, but they weren't given to you. I know, but I didn't steal them. And she said, do you know where they belong? And I said, no, but we have a couple of grocery stores up at the corner, probably not grocery stores, restaurants. I said, it's probably one of theirs. And she said, yeah. Do you think they told people to take them with them and throw them out their car windows so that you could pick them up and keep them? And so I put them in a little bag, a big bag, and I went up to 2 restaurants, and one of them said, yeah, those are ours. And I was like, I just found them periodically and picked them up here. And they looked at me like I was kind of crazy, but they took them, and it was this huge sense of relief. Because that, in a Buddhist context, would have been stealing. I took something that wasn't given to me. So I have since released seashells. I don't know if that counts, but I thought the ocean didn't give them to me. I released them anyhow. And sexual misconduct, in today's context, how that's defined is adultery, assault, anything that's force would be sexual misconduct. Then the 4 of speech are lying or speaking harshly, slander, and gossip. And lying is lying, but it's also exaggeration. And I exaggerate all the time, which was just an exaggeration. I exaggerate a lot, and that's not an exaggeration. I exaggerate. And that will stop me in my tracks, because I think, oh my gosh, I'm creating the mind to continue to exaggerate and to lie. And I don't want to create that mind. And so it usually stops me second sentence. I exaggerate, and then I say, no, really, that, it's not always like that. And then I backtrack. So that's lying. Harsh speech can be anger. We use our speech a lot to harm others. And I know people who never raise an angry voice, but they're so passive-aggressive that they're just digging that knife. And that's still harsh speech, even without the anger. The anger intent is there. The want to harm is there. I love Maya Angelou's quote when she said, I may not remember the words you said to me, but I remember how it made me feel. And that's what our words do to people. And then slander, which is divisive speech, where we try to divide people. So I go to you and I say, did you see how she was dressed? And are you sure you want to sit by her next time? You just start those divisive things with people. So they start wondering, she lies and I've seen her steal, or whatever that we do, just to create that divisiveness. And then gossip, which is idle speech. It's usually meaningless. Most people don't see gossip as harmful. We do it all the time. We just think of it as normal. And it's really, really quite harmful. And if you've ever heard somebody gossiping about you, I won't even ask for a show of hands. I'm sure it's most people in this room. And then they say, oh, geez, I didn't mean it. yeah, right. It hurt and you said it, and it's really, really quite harmful. Plus, it wastes a lot of time. It takes away from building that positive state of mind that we want to build. I don't know why people engage in gossip. It probably makes us feel better that we're not on the other end, so we try to be on that in crowd. Maybe it boosts our confidence. I don't know why we do it, but it's quite harmful. And then the last are 3 of mind, which is covetousness, ill will, or being angry, and wrong views. And covetousness is jealousy and greed, which in our culture, we tend to always compare up. We tend to always want, something that somebody else has. And a good practice or antidote to that is, there's antidotes to all of these things, but with jealousy, to practice delight. So to think, I'm really glad they got that promotion. I'm really glad they got that new car. And at first, you might not feel so glad, but you're trying to create that mind. You're trying to make that mind go to delight. For some people, that delight comes first, not jealousy. For others of us, you just have to constantly work on creating that mind so that it's there. And Rabina has the saying, fake it till you make it. Most things you don't want to fake, but this is practicing. It's not really faking it. You're practicing creating that mind that delights instead of gets jealous or greedy, always wanting what somebody else has. Ill will is anger. We talked about how being angry for 1 second can eliminate eons of positive, virtue that you created. And anger is like, taking a poison and hoping the other person gets sick. Or Geshe-la will say, you're holding a hot coal to throw at somebody, but you're holding it before you throw it at them. So it's us that's getting burned and hurt by this anger rather than the other person. Anger is quite harmful. And then the last one is wrong view, which has to do with how we see reality, for one thing. But on our regular day-to-day aspects, it's just thinking something completely incorrectly, like thinking that if another's suffering, you say, that's their karma. If they wouldn't have done something in the past, it wouldn't have been happening to them now. Like, that's a completely wrong view and misuse of karma. That's just one example. Okay. Questions? Do these sound familiar? I mean, I think 10 Commandments, the interpretation's a little different, how we use them are a little different, but similar, right? Questions about any of these? Okay. Okay. And we can come back to those as questions arise. All right. And then let me just say to remember that the main reasons is not that external force, but to think that all beings want to be happy. We don't want to suffer. Everybody, every living sentient being wants happiness and doesn't want to suffer. And how can we be the cause for that happiness and to eliminate that suffering is really what we want to start thinking about. So it's not hopeless, right? So we tend to do negative actions, and usually even out of ignorance, because we're not even thinking about what we've done. And then what can we do about it? And I can't, there's not time in this class to go into details. There's Geshe-la teaches on these. There's teachings in the Discovering Buddhism class on the 4 opponent powers. And they'll make sense on what we talk about them. The first step is to stop, trying to stop creating it. And then create, virtue. And then begin to purify. And so with purification, we can weaken the karmic seed. And maybe we can eliminate it, with the right intentions and enough enough purification practices. And the 4 opponent powers are regret, reliance, remedy, and resolve, the 4 R's. And with regret, it's that remorse, you know you did something, you just feel awful about it. You have a lot of regret for what you did. It's not guilt. They don't even have the word guilt in the Tibetan language. Like they don't even know how to there's no translation for it. They had no understanding of what guilt was. Regret, yes, because you can regret something and then I regret it and I'm going to take steps to change it. It's not that guilt and that we're constantly berating ourselves or feeling really sorry for ourselves. There's more hope and change in regret is how it's kind of described to me. So we regret what we've done. We rely on something to help us. In AA, you have the 12 steps, and you rely on that power outside of us that's greater than us. In Christianity, it's Jesus. In some religions, it's God or Allah. In Buddhism, it's the 3 jewels. So you go to the Guru or the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. That's who we have reliance on. And then there's a remedy, and the remedy is what you do, you might say some mantras, or you might, like sometimes, people will go to Geshe-la and say, what can they do? And Geshe-la will have them they're called satsas. They're I'm sure we have some up there. They're little statues that people can make. And so you do that kind of stuff. In Catholicism, you went to confession and you were given a penance to say. It was always, usually similar, the same penance. And then I'd always leave thinking, oh man, when I do this penance, I need to figure, because I just lied in the confessional. So now I need to go back and figure out the penance for lying in the confessional. And then you resolve not to do it again. Some things, literally, it might be a second. May I just for a second not judge or not think something negative, and then other things you might be able to do 5-10 minutes, an hour, or maybe a day that you resolve to do something for a day. So you can kind of decide, and then you just try. You just try to keep that resolve. And that's kind of the 4 opponent powers in a quick nutshell. And then there's lots of things you can do as part of that to purify. So, we talked about the 3 principal paths already of the 3 principal aspects of the path. And the path is the Lam Rim path. And the 3 are renunciation, bodhicitta, and the wisdom of realizing emptiness. And as you recall, and maybe a little bit of detail, renunciation is that wish that from the depth of your heart that you want out. You want out of samsara, this cycle of existence. You want out of this attachment to samsaric pleasure, and you want liberation. You want it with your whole heart and soul, so that day and night you're going to go after this wish, trying to renunciate from this samsaric pleasure, so that you can work towards eliminating the suffering of all beings. And you take any opportunity to practice that you can. Bodhicitta is that infinite compassion for all beings. It's that altruistic intention that you become enlightened so that you can help all other beings become enlightened, that you can't even bear the thought of any of them suffer, and you want to be the one to kind of end that suffering for all beings. And a lot of times, let me just say, the wisdom of emptiness is the right view of reality. What the Buddha realized when he was under the Bodhi tree after 49 days. And next week we're going to talk about the reality as the Buddha came to know it and what he tries to teach us. And when you think of bodhicitta, there's 3 definitions or concepts in Buddhism to think about. So with bodhicitta, there's love or loving kindness, and there's compassion. And love is the wish for all sentient beings to be happy. We have a little bit of a different idea, because when you love people that you know are close to you, you do want them to be happy. But the goal is to keep expanding our hearts. I'll do it with my grandkids. Like when I pick up my grandkids, and I'm kissing them, and they're just so sweet and innocent. And I just think, oh my gosh, all babies need to be loved and need to be happy and need to be cherished, just like, these little boys need to be cherished. So you just keep softening your heart, keep expanding them out. You probably do that with your grandson. That's just an easy way to just keep developing that sense of compassion. And then there's lots of loving kindness meditations you can do. Just may they have happiness. May they not suffer. May they find peace, courage, strength, whatever you want to say. Sharon Salzberg has lots of loving kindness meditations, and it's important to have that loving kindness to yourself and do those same meditations. Compassion is the wish for sentient beings to be free from suffering. You don't want any being to suffer. And then the last one is equanimity, that we have these wishes for all sentient beings. Every cockroach, every ant in my kitchen right now, every flea, you have a sense of equanimity, but especially for people, that you stretch that equanimity for all people. So there's that absence of any discrimination between like, don't like, neutral, don't know ya, don't really care. Yes. And if I don't see you raise your hand, say, hey. You didn't have your hand up for a while, did you? Okay, good.
So, that's easy to say, but what if something's happiness depends on someone or something else's pain? Or, like you mentioned, a flea. Obviously, fleas cause pain and sickness and your animals. So how can you wish that flea happiness knowing that it's at the expense of something else?
I know, right? So I won't be able to give a good answer of this. I'll say that from a Buddhist perspective, if I was channeling Venerable Rabina, she would say that flea has just as much right as your cat or your dog to live. We don't live in a perfect world, however, and I've heard Geshe-la say, we don't live in a perfect world. This is samsara. You do what you have to do, and then you purify, right? Because it's still killing. Everybody gets termite inspections, right? We had termites. My husband was in the garage and he leaned up against the, we have a wood house, it's a cedar house. But anyhow, he leaned up against the wood beam in the garage and the whole beam fell over. What are you going to do? So I was like, just cut the beam out. We can cut it out and throw it in the woods. He's like, Karen, and he's Buddhist, No, we can't, What are you going to do? You have a home. You're not gonna let termite, So we don't live in a perfect world. You drive your car. We kill more insects driving our car than we do by putting flea medicine on our pets. But I know people who won't put flea medicine on their pets. So that's a toughie. That help at all? There's no easy answer. We can make the wish that we live in a society where we don't, because in other cultures, they don't care about fleas, they don't care about bed bugs. We live in a society that's just not socially acceptable,
So this is another question that you probably don't want to answer. But what if you live in the ocean and you're a dolphin and your primary food are other fish? What do you do then?
Thank you. You set that wish for that dolphin because the dolphin can't do it himself, right? Although, do dolphins eat other fish? Some just eat plankton, so well, plankton are live too, right? Oh gosh, all right, we're gonna spiral. You make that wish for them. So like if I see like hawks, we have hawks in our neighborhood now. We have little bunnies. We always feel for the little bunny, but what about the hawk or the owl that has to eat? And that's just what they do, right? I watched. Oh gosh, you watch a robin come down and swoop a worm off the street as you're walking by. That's what they do. So then you just say, "Oh, my home, oh, my home, oh, my home." Anything. Say His Holiness the Dalai Lama, scream Jesus, whatever it is that you can do, just to, you try to plant those seeds that maybe they won't do it in a future life. And there are times when an animal does something kind, and our son saved a mouse. This was when he was in high school. Saved a mouse from a snake. We had that dang mouse for years, and it got loose one time. And he went to college, and so we're trying to find this mouse, and our cat found it. Middle of the night, I'm laying in bed, and the cat jumped off the bed like a bat out of hell, and I thought, what happened? And my husband and I both jumped up and said, the mouse! And she had it in her mouth. And so I'm screaming, I'm trying to get the mouse out of her mouth, and they became best friends. And I just keep thinking, okay, remember when you were friends with this mouse, not that she hasn't killed rabbits and everything else, but remember you befriended this mouse, that good, trikarmic thing. Animal realms, that's why we don't want to be born in an animal realm. It takes a long time to get out of there because you're constantly creating negative karma. Yeah. But we don't have the wisdom to know what to do. I saved a bee from a spider web once. I was really upset. And I was, screaming and crying and carrying on. And I took this bee out of the spider web just as the spider was coming down to get it. And the bee was so entangled in that web that I couldn't untangle it. And it died. And so now the spider went hungry and the bee still died because I didn't have the wisdom to know what to do. So we'd be better off making a wish than doing, more harm to both creatures, Do you have anything to add to that, Hetty? Any questions? It's not the way we look at this in our culture. And you might say, well, my cat comes before the fleas, or think about, some of you may be researchers in here. There's researchers doing incredible work. My research on animals or insects comes before, I'm going to cure this disease. So everybody has different things. So just you're listening from a Buddhist perspective, and then we all do what we can do. All right. There's a story about a butcher in either India or Tibet, I don't remember where, who they're butchers for however long, and then somebody else takes it over, and then they go off and they purify, because people have to eat, right? So they kill the animals so people could eat, and they do whatever, and then they go off and they purify, and the next person takes that job. Okay, good questions. So, the handout you have is a foundation of all good qualities. All of these teachings, all what we've been talking about, it's all part of the Lam Rim, this graduated path to enlightenment that was written by Lama Tsongkhapa, who is pictured, well, I don't know if you can see him. Under the Buddha, he's in the middle, is the rendition of Lama Tsongkhapa. He was actually a really high realized yogi in Tibet. He was born in 1357. I think he died in 1421. And he realized emptiness, and he realized the Buddhist teachings. I mean, really realized the Buddhist teachings. And so he wrote the three volumes book of the Lam Rim, which is really a meditation on the path. And as you read those, it really is intended to be a meditation, the three books. but then he gave us this beautiful outline called The Foundation of All Good Qualities, which is much shorter than 3 volumes, and it's really an outline of the entire path, and we'll talk about that today. The whole idea with the Lam Rim is how we should live our lives every day, so that we can create, the virtuous karma through our body, speech, and mind. And there's lots of ways we can create virtuous karma. We can do actions when we can. We can make a wish. Geshe-la said that wishes are just really powerful. So like when I hear about a killing in California that happened today, or you hear about the suffering of the Syrian people, like what can I do? And you can feel kind of hopeless, but I can make the wish that they not suffer. So I can make that wish. Or if you read about somebody doing good things, like somebody, figuring out clean water for people in African villages, they have clean water for the first time, I can rejoice in that. And you can, by rejoicing and delighting, you're actually connecting to that positive karma. We have a stupa out here, that large figure right outside when you go out the front doors to the right. And Geshe-la says just walking around that stupa and thinking positive things, that just the act of walking around it creates virtuous merit. It's positive karma. We may not understand that, but you're walking around blessed relics that are in there. I may not understand it. A lightning bolt may not come out and strike me, but that's the least I can do, is every time I come here, walk around that stupa a couple times to get that virtuous merit. And you walk around it clockwise. So when you leave tonight, walk around the stupa a couple times. It can be helpful. And it's similar to as you're creating these virtuous actions to benefit other people, you have to create them for yourself first. And they compare it to, putting an oxygen mask on, right? When you fly, they say put the mask on yourself first, and then you put it on the child who's ever there next to you. So it's always you first so that you can help others. And so that's a good way to look at this. So, now, I know I kept a copy for me. So, the first stanza is the importance of a guru, and Lama Tsongkhapa says that the foundation of all good qualities is the kind and venerable guru. Correct devotion to him or her is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon him or her with great respect. And so we may not find our guru. Living in the United States, we have limited access to meeting these holy beings. They say that it takes about 12 to 20 years to really vet somebody to know that they're the person that you want to be your guru. And so what we do is we learn from each other, we come to the center, we build this relationship with this wonderful, precious teacher that we have. We actually have 2 teachers, both Geshe-la and Geshe Songpo. We have 4 nuns. We have communities of people who come here and study. So some of you had said, you've been reading for a while and studying on your own. I did too, but it's not the same. You reach that point where you just know you're not getting all the answers. You're not even sure you're reading the right stuff or what it means. And so you need to find these teachings. And so coming and learning more, if you decide that's your path, is part of that realizing, you need to have a better understanding of what this all means. And they say that's like the foundation of the path. So, the next stanza is on the preciousness of human rebirth, which it's just not a phrase that we're very similar with. So understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, it's greatly meaningful and is difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly, day and night, takes that essence. And even you may not understand that right now, but we can still begin to generate that mind that we can unceasingly begin to take its essence. And they say it's like a beggar sitting on a box, and the box is filled with gold, but he doesn't even know the gold is in there. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, even help one person realize the preciousness of human life has greater merit than building 100,000 stupas. Like, that's how beneficial realizing the preciousness of human life is. So we need to see this life as meaningful. We have a human life. We have lots of luxuries in this country and in this life, and we can make something of it. Now, if you think that life is random and when you die, that's the end, that's okay, but you can still realize you can do a lot of good while you're here in this life, and that there's still that potential, there's still that reason to do that. And then to realize how difficult this life is to find again, especially in a country like ours. And so they say that it's so difficult that and so rare that the description used, it's like a blind turtle in the middle of an ocean. So vast, miles and miles of water, huge, vast ocean. There's a blind turtle floating around, and there's a yoke floating on the water, like that goes around an ox, or think of a lifesaver floating in this huge, vast ocean. You have this small little lifesaver, and every 100 years the turtle comes up from the water. And what are the odds that he's going to come up and come between that lifesaver, that the yoke or that lifesaver? That's how rare having a human rebirth is explained, and how meaningful it is that we have this human rebirth now. We have the ideal conditions for practicing the Dharma, for creating changing our minds, developing more positive minds. We have this ideal balance of leisure and suffering. We have just enough suffering to know, there's a lot of dissatisfaction, and we do want, lasting happiness, and we want this bliss of liberation. So it kind of keeps us motivated. And we have the opportunity to practice compassion, to practice kindness. Any questions, comments? And realize a human rebirth it's not guaranteed. Geshe-la says that, we shouldn't worry about that, but there's not a guarantee. Somebody after the first class says, yeah, but if I do really a lot of good in this life, isn't there a guarantee I'll be born a human in the next life? And I don't know, who knows? Karma is a deep subject, but we have all kinds of karmic seeds, and who knows what the conditions are for whatever's gonna ripen. So there is no guarantee. Questions? So I was gonna, we have time. I was gonna read a meditation out of Kathleen MacDonald's book. And I'm gonna read it out of this book, but just so you know, it looks like this now. This is the newer version that we have in our center. And this one is on a meditation just on a life of luxury and having a human rebirth. So go ahead and sit comfortably and close your eyes. And let go of any questions that are swirling around, anything that you think, this is a bunch of bung and I'm not getting it. Just let it go for now. It doesn't matter. I hope you do think that way, right? We should be questioning, especially questioning me, but you should be questioning all teachings. Even the Buddha said, question my teachings. Don't take what I'm saying as your own experience. Experience it yourself. So it's good that you question, but just let it go for now. Take a couple of nice deep breaths and just settle your mind. And then just focus on your breath, returning your breath to a nice, relaxed, comfortable rhythm for you. And this is an analytical meditation. And we're going to start by checking up on how you feel about yourself, your life, your personality, your accomplishments, abilities, and so forth. Are you satisfied? Or do you find many faults, much to be desired? Can you detect feelings of inadequacy, discouragement, or hopelessness? Even if your present state of mind is positive and things are going really well for you right now, just recall past times when you felt discouraged or upset. And make the determination to get rid of this dark sense of hopelessness. So to help you develop a better perspective on your own life, first compare it with the lives of others worse off than you. Try to imagine what it would be like as an animal, for example, deeply ignorant, with no potential for mental and spiritual development, controlled by others, experience the perpetual round of hunger, thirst, heat, and cold, and living always in fear of death. So imagine being that hawk, that lion, that polar bear. You know, owls are dying of starvation right now. Living in constant fear. Imagine being a beggar on the streets of Calcutta or living in the deserts of Africa, constantly in need of food and water, with no time to think of anything else. Human, but with little more opportunity for development than an animal. Imagine having severe mental or physical handicaps and the lack of freedom this would mean. Or imagine living in a country where there is political and social oppression, allowing you little freedom to pursue your interests. Now, it's easy to read and repeat these words, but to really put yourself in one of these situations is another matter. Visualizing and thinking deeply about the plight of the beggar, the fear and paranoia of an animal, the hopelessness of the person in the desert. It can be really frightening, foreign to us, and quite painful. But by understanding the agony of each of these situations, we learn to appreciate how minuscule our present problems are. Be thankful for what you have and feel the compassion for others' hardship. Now bring to mind all the good qualities and advantages of your life. You are a human being with an intelligent mind, a loving heart, and a healthy body. Your friends and family support you. You have the good fortune to live in a country comparatively free of social and political oppression. You have countless opportunities to pursue your creative, intellectual, and social interests, opportunities to go anywhere and do anything. You enjoy a good standard of living compared to many, many others. And most of all, you have the potential and opportunity, because of all the other benefits, to investigate, understand, and transform your mind. Think now how few people or creatures on earth share these freedoms and chances with you. When you have considered this deeply, you will realize how rare and precious a life like yours is. Really appreciate your good fortune. Think of all the possibilities open to you to work, travel, enjoy things, study. And these are just the simple, mundane opportunities. The greatest benefit this life can bring is the chance for spiritual development, transformation of your mind. And so just contemplate all these points slowly and carefully. Look at them from different angles. Your power to control your mind and to achieve enlightenment should really become clear, and how preciousness this life is. And so dedicate the energy and inspiration you have gained from doing this meditation to your own ultimate happiness and to the ultimate happiness of all beings. That meditation can be really powerful. I have pictures that I use that I can just look at pictures so that you can really begin to feel what this is like. And then just watch your pets. I mean, our pets are in a great position. They're probably closer to a human life than we are for our next life. Especially, anyhow. But watch them sometime. Like if you come home late for work, you see that panic, they're totally dependent on you for food. If you're ever caught in a snowstorm, and they're inside, what are they going to do? You can get that sense of fear even in our own pets. It's there. So, preciousness of human rebirth. So the Buddhist view of death, and we'll talk about this, and then we'll pick it up again next week, because we may not get through it all. And this is only the third stanza. And this life is as impermanent as a water bottle. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. So, in the West, we don't think about death. It's an uncomfortable subject. Venerable Amy was here a month or two ago, and she did a weekend retreat on death and dying. And I don't ever tell my mom what I'm doing. It just really upsets her mind. So I don't say anything. But she asked what I was doing, and I just said it, and she was like, "Oh, you know, like you can imagine, like, oh, you know, couldn't you find something fun to do?" You know, and Geshe-la says that people in the East fear death, so they talk about it all the time. They work with it. They come to terms with it. In the West, we fear death, so we hide it. We ignore it. We run from it. We don't talk about it, you know. And it can be a really powerful thing to do, is to realize we are all going to die, and to use that to motivate your practice and to really create that positive mind. So from a Buddhist perspective, you have 3 main points, and then there's 3 points under each of these main points. But death is definite. It's certain. The time of death is uncertain, and nothing helps us at the time of death but our practice. So all beings die. All living beings die. Everyone has to die, period. I don't know anybody who has a get out of jail free card. Nobody. Even people who are trying to work on it and freezing themselves and freezing cells, there's no get out of jail free. We're all going to die. Our lifespan is always decreasing, always. Even as we sit here, seconds pass, time passes. From the second we're born, we're that much closer to death. We're moving closer to death then. And there's little time for practice. So we should practice a lot now. And we spend so little time developing our minds. And, you know, Geshe-la says, if, you know, we jumped from an airplane without a parachute, we would be acutely aware that we're hurtling to our death and we're going to hit earth and crash. And he says, we have been thrown from the airplane, and we don't have a parachute, and we could slow it down, but usually we don't even realize how to open it or what to do to open our parachutes, even to slow our fall down as it hits. The time of death, so death is certain. The time of death is uncertain. So lifespans are uncertain. You can die leaving a hospital, visiting a really sick friend who's dying. I read the obituaries every day. I know it sounds morbid. I don't do it to be morbid, but I read them every single day, and I think, they're younger than me. They're my age. They're just a little bit older than me. And then I'll try to look to see how they died, and think, well, that could be me. That could be me. That could happen to me. Just like a few seconds thought. And it can help me frame my mind for how I want to be the rest of the day. And then there's so many causes of death. On the way over here, there's something called nightmare bacteria now is what they labeled it. Not in the US yet, but it's worse than any superbugs we have. And they don't know what's going to happen once these things start to take over. NPR was just doing a little blurb on it. And so I thought there's not enough causes of death. Now we have a new one. And all they can do right now is try to catch it early enough so they can think about how can we prevent other people from getting it. It's got like a 50% fatality rate. So it's pretty phenomenal. Nightmare bacteria, one more cause. And the body is fragile. You know, I don't know why we think this body could withstand a bullet, a knife, a car. Venerable Amy says we get behind, a 2-ton vehicle and we act like we're not going to get smashed by another 2-ton vehicle when they hit us. Like it's not going to harm this bag of bones, that could crumble under it. Um, we can't be certain. We're not going to die today. There's no guarantee. No matter how healthy you are, we should do lots of things to keep us healthy and productive, and hopefully we'll all live long lives. But we don't know. People die running, they die playing ball, they die eating supper. I was just meeting with a neighbor that lives around the corner. His wife died a few months ago, eating breakfast. He got up to go brush his teeth and came back, and she was laying there at the table. So you don't know when it's going to happen. Our bodies won't last forever. And that there's, I missed one. And that there's nothing that can help but our practice. So money and possessions can't take with you, and they won't help you at your time of death. Your friends and family can't help you at your time of death, and your body can't help you. Only really our practice can help. And so these are the three main points of a death meditation. But Venerable Amy says, just do this simple one. When you wake up in the morning, the first thing that you should think is, I'm going to die today. I'm going to die today at 6 p.m. It could happen. It could happen today. And that will be the end. And she says, it sounds really scary, but nobody who's ever tried this has died, so you don't have to worry that it's going to happen to you. Write yourself a note. Leave it at your bedside. Leave it on your, if you've set an alarm, leave it there. And just think, today I could die. And how do you want to live your last day? Like, what kind of a person do you want to be? What kind of practices do you want to do? How do you want to interact with others? It can help you live more fully than acting like, as soon as we walk out of here, we're going to think, we're not going to die. We just forget. We just don't think that way. But if we thought that way, we could live our lives more fully. Somebody very close to me, who I love from the bottom of my heart, has two pretty serious conditions, and he says, this is a gift. I know I'm going to die, where you all don't have a clue you're going to die. And so he'll remind me periodically, you could die before me. You could die before me. But it's helpful because it just gives me, because I worry so much about him. And then it's helpful. I think, yeah, I could die before you. That's right. We're all dying. It's just that reminder. He says he's just blessed to have that reminder in his face constantly. If you could see that as a blessing. I hope someday I can practice like him. But it can help you. It can help you how you spend the rest of your day when you think that way. And Venerable Amy does that meditation every day. His Holiness does a death meditation 4 times a day. How many? 5. 5 times a day His Holiness does it. Geshe-la does it. I mean, I figure if great beings do this and see the importance, I can do it once a day. I can do it. It'll be good. So we'll continue the rest of the stanzas next week. But before we leave, oh man, how did that happen? Before we leave, let's just do a quick meditation and just dedicate. So we're just going to do this and dedicate, and then I'll take any questions, because I know some people have to leave. So we'll make this quick, and then I'm happy to take any questions for anybody who can stay for a few minutes. So take a few deep breaths and think about what you heard tonight. Use it to motivate you to be a better person and to do positive things. That's the whole point of this, is to increase positive states of mind and get rid of negative states of mind, eliminate negative states of mind. If it bothers you, don't think about it. So if the idea of thinking about your death does not benefit your mind or help your practice, put it on a shelf. That's not a big deal. This is just the Buddhist perspective of death that we're hearing about tonight. And then just dedicate any merit you've gotten from being here this evening, from listening to the talks and the questions in each other. and dedicated, that you can continue to learn and grow, and that any merit gained will grow so that we can increase our happiness and well-being and benefit others in helping them to find happiness and well-being. So I feel confident I'll see you all next week, and we will continue our discussions on the foundation of all good quality, and we're really going to focus on impermanence, which is a juicy subject, and what's the Buddhist view of reality, this wisdom of emptiness. So we'll talk about that. I'll answer any questions that you have as you think about this material, and we'll talk about some Buddhist prayers that we say. All right, have a great night. Be careful going home. I'll see you all next week.